Welcome to the Worldwide Doula podcast. I'm Barry, I'm a registered nurse and birth doula, and each week I'm joined by a new guest speaker to talk about all things pregnancy, birth, babies, and parenthood. So it's time to sit back and relax as we get into some juicy topics. Welcome to the Worldwide Doula podcast. Today I'll be speaking to the lovely vegan mama and fellow doula, Delphine. Welcome, Delphine. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Delphine
Delphine lives in Lombok, Indonesia, which is the next island over from where I am. She lives with her husband and her 3 beautiful children. Her and her family have a clean, plant-based lifestyle, which I have to say is pretty impressive, considering it's quite difficult to find your usual plant-based products in Lombok.
Right.
But yeah, somehow you do it. I don't understand. So today she's going to be telling us how she prepared for pregnancy as a vegan mama. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you became a vegan.
All right. So, first of all, I was born and raised in France. I went to the US for a year to learn English, then went back to my hometown to finish my studies in university. I became a French teacher, then traveled for work in Abu Dhabi and the UAE, met my husband. And like you said, we have now 3 beautiful children. I became a doula in Dubai in 2020. I have supported many couples throughout their pregnancies, virtually and in hospitals, of course. Like you said, we recently moved to Lombok, Indonesia, to live a simpler and laid-back lifestyle. And we are now known as the vegan traveling family on Instagram. I have been vegan for 7 years. It's the same for my children. When my oldest is 8, so she was not always a vegan. When she was little, I offered her some salmon that she never liked, by the way, and some dairy products. We've noticed a lot of eczema, a lot of rash on my skin. That's when I turned vegan. But for the rest of the family, we became vegan. So yeah, I would say 7 years ago.
Okay.
It has its own challenges. Like you said, it's not easy in Lombok. We thought it was gonna be easier, like the island, tropical island lifestyle with a lot of juicy fruits and vegetables, but we are lacking in variety. It's not easy to find fresh all the time. So at least it's not easy to rotate the amount of vegetables and fruit that you have. But we are managing pretty well, I would say.
My experience living in Lombok compared to Australia, I have to say there's so many beautiful fruits and vegetables here, but I don't feel the same eating them as I did when I was in Australia. Like I feel almost like they're grown with different water, they're grown with different nutrients from the soil. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's just that I'm not washing them correctly and they don't make me feel very good. But yeah, you always turn up on your Instagram. I always see you, oh, there's a new, peanut butter, or there's this new protein ball that you found or something that's really delicious, or like a cookie that's vegan that looks just as good as a non-vegan cookie, which surprises me.
It's true. We find so many merchants now who have been working on their recipes, and many vegan options are available. In terms of fruit, quality of fruit and vegetables could be bland at times. Yeah. But in terms of sweets, yeah, you can find. And we also create many recipes at home. We used to do back in Dubai. So we are back on track now. And we're trying to post to motivate people to, to change their plates, try to rotate, make it colorful.
Yeah, your food always looks amazing, and your husband cooks some really delicious goodies. I can see.
He found his calling, his true calling, since he traveled. He has been cooking. It's a nice change for me. I'm not gonna lie. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Why did you become a vegan? Out of curiosity.
So the first reason was because of Lily, right? When I was telling you earlier, she had eczema. You want me to start over to that one?
I mean, like, some people become vegans because they don't like the thought of eating animals, or sometimes it's just because, like, for instance, I don't eat dairy and I don't eat meat other than fish because it just doesn't feel good in my body. Like it just sits in my belly. It makes me feel really sick. It makes me feel bloated. And yeah, I mean, exactly what you said about Lily. She started getting rashes and eczema. And that's a very good reason not to eat dairy and not to eat, animal products. But I just wanted to know what your reason was. Was it ethical or was it more deeper than that?
Yes, I am what they call an ethical vegan, but it started for different reason. That was because of Lily's eczema, my oldest. So like I said, she had a big rash, like extreme rashes on her cheeks mainly, and it was very bad looking, started to bleed. So we trying to investigate. We asked many doctors who could not give us a proper answer. So we started our own research, and I was breastfeeding at that time. That's when I find out the connection between, of course, the breast milk and the babies and the reaction on their bodies. So I started to cut dairy, and I should have mentioned that earlier, actually. I was vegetarian before I turned vegan. So I was not eating meat or chicken. I was still having dairy and egg. So when we cut off those last things, the egg and the dairy, we have noticed a drastic change in her skin. And I decided to keep on going. And then, of course, as you go and educating yourself, you realize different reasons to be vegan. And that was ethical for me. The cruelty that goes behind that, I could not just look back and say, I became a vegan.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an easy decision to make. Like some people have really struggled being vegan, but for others, it's like just meant to be. Like it happens so naturally.
It is very natural. Once we found out, there was no going back. It would not make sense, if you know what I mean. And I just wish we turned vegan earlier. That's what I always say. And for me, it's a blessing to be vegan. It's our lifestyle. So it's not only about the food that we have, it's the clothing we wear. We are trying to be ethical in every possible way, the way we live, what we wear. So of course, there's no leather. That's the most obvious, but we are just kind to every human being. That's what I could say. The best way I could say. It's our lifestyle, really.
It's definitely a more conscious way of living. Definitely.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about your pregnancy. I don't know which one you want to talk about. You can talk about any of them. Probably one after Lily was born, maybe your son or your most recent pregnancy. How did you make sure that you were getting all the important nutrients on your vegan diet to prepare yourself for pregnancy and then also during your pregnancy?
Okay. So for my firstborn, I was vegetarian, not vegan yet. So I did consume some dairy, mainly Greek yogurt and butter on toast, as I was never a big fan of cheese, despite being French.
That's unheard of.
But for my next two pregnancies, I was vegan. I did not miss the dairy or eggs at all. Generally, I ate a lot of cooked veggies in curries, roasted in the oven, and pasta with sauce blended with a variety of vegetables. I'm also a big fan of cold pressed juices, which preserves most of the nutrients as opposed to the other squeezed juices that lose those essentials shortly after if not consumed. And how I prepare during pregnancy, I include lots of ginger, turmeric in my juices. And I made a habit of rotating the vegetables and fruits in my juice intake. But it's important to mention that I had to do a lot of research to not miss on those required prenatals. So I can't stress the importance of including those in your diet during your pregnancy. I was also taking a vegan prenatal supplement to make sure I was covered, especially during the first trimester, when you're not feeling like eating anything, the dry crackers, water and the chips too, So that was essential.
Yeah. So what about like your iron levels and like the folate levels? Did you just take supplements for that? Because I know that there are lots of iron-rich foods that aren't meat-based. Everyone thinks that you have to get iron from red meat, but being a vegetarian for a lot of my teenage years, it definitely does not help going into puberty and starting your period and not knowing which foods I could eat that had iron in them. How did you get your iron and did you check
Well,
Did you have any
honestly,
troubles with your iron levels at all?
no, I never had any trouble. But once you start studying on the vital nutrients, it's easy to ensure that your home is stocked up with those vitamins that you mentioned. So we always have our blood checked once or twice a year as a whole family. During pregnancy, you have those required tests that you have to, that you can take, or it's up to you, of course. But I always check my blood, pregnant or not pregnant. And yes, there are certain things that I have to be supplemented with, like the B12, the vitamin D, iron, and zinc sometimes. But those are the things we take on a daily basis, not just because we are vegan. It's just because we live in a world where sometimes the quality of food and water is poor and can be lacking in nutrients. So we take them. Actually, those vitamins are not made for vegan people. They are meant for everybody else. It's just like it's available for us, and we take them to ensure that we are not missing on anything.
Yeah, that's good. Were there any specific foods that were like go-to in your pregnancy that you consumed a lot of, like maybe cravings, or just foods that you ate specifically? You mentioned that you did like cold pressed juices and stuff like that. That made me salivate a little bit because I love cold pressed juices. But was there anything in particular that you ate or craved?
Well, every pregnancy was different, and for all of them, for the three of them, actually, during the first trimester was a bit tricky for me. There was a lot of nausea. So I was mainly consuming that dry crackers. And yes, cold pressed juices was always the go for my vitamin, to make sure I was not missing on anything. And surprisingly, the color did not make any difference. Sometimes you just repulsed by the kind of food, like if the smells of, let's say, I don't know, typical lasagna will make me gag. So the fresh with the ginger and the add of lemon zest will help a lot during the first month. So that will be my to-go drink to make sure I was starting the day well. And in terms of cravings, I did have, for every pregnancy was different. I had a typical pickle, the vinegar chips, and some butter and dairy. And for my last one was just a bowl of olives and avocado. So it depends. Each pregnancy was different, but it's not a myth. It's real. The cravings are real. At least for me, they were, and it could happen at any time of the day. And thank God I have a beautiful and gentle husband who will just run whenever I had a craving.
That's important to having that one person that can go and get whatever you're craving and bring it back to you.
I was not nagging, but I'd say it is very supportive, and he still is supportive as a husband, as a father. So yes, he understood the real needs of pregnancy, and I think after each one, he will know. He knows how to manage, and he does very well.
Good. And I don't think that these two things are related, but when people think that vegan diets mean that you're lacking in a lot of nutrients, which obviously then they think is linked with a difficult pregnancy or a difficult birth. You didn't have any difficulties with your pregnancies or births just because of your vegan diet at all?
Not at all. And I think it's important to mention that I was active throughout all my pregnancies. And this is what I always encourage mamas that I support or that I meet. It's very important to stay active and to keep the same level, or at least try to keep the same level as before you got pregnant. It helps tremendously during the birthing process, because you have to move your body during the birthing day, and it will make things much, much easier. I'm sure it's because I was physically active. And of course, the last pregnancy, I was even more active because I had 2 other children to take care of, right? So of course, I did have my days of rest, and it's important to rest as well. But at least to keep active and have 1 hour for yourself, it doesn't have to be high cardio. It depends on what you were doing really before. But I've been active all my life, and I just stayed active, and I kept on doing the same classes until I gave birth. So
that's good. I think it's people get pregnant and they're like, oh, now I can't exercise. They almost use it as an excuse, but yes, it's so important to keep exercising.
Maybe some mamas have different symptoms, and some are
Yes,
super
definitely.
nauseous during the whole pregnancy. Some have very heavy feelings and they can't do. It's just important to listen to the cues, your body cues, and to just connect with your mind. Really, it's just, and maybe one day you take it easy, one day you rest, one day you, I don't know, walk your dog, or do some yoga stretches, or even the chores you do around the house is a workout. Really, just
exactly.
try to rotate your activities so that your body will be used to moving, and the day you give birth you will be happy that you can still move, because if you start moving during birth and you haven't been active during pregnancy, your body is just not used to it, and it might be tricky to move certain part of your body that you haven't moved during pregnancy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I want to talk about parenthood now. You have 3 beautiful children and they're all obviously on a plant-based diet. What is it like raising kids on a plant-based diet? Have you run into any challenges? Obviously, there's probably challenges, but yeah, tell me a bit about that.
Well, so when they were young, I just avoided putting them in front of temptations. You know, as they grew, I started telling them how animals are our friends and that it's not nice to eat a friend. At about 6, I started talking about the real facts and how the burger or slice of cheese they see in a burger came from another creature suffering. Having pets or being exposed to animals help greatly because it creates a bond with other creatures and that develops into love and caring for them. But the biggest challenge was, and I think it still is, birthday parties. I completely understand that they will want to join their friends in eating the cake. I have made a habit of preparing a dessert and preferably a cake for them to take to the party. But many of our friends have been very considerate and they have a vegan option ready. I'm super grateful for that. But
that's so great. That was one of my later questions. How do you deal with social interactions like birthday parties and stuff? So that's great to hear. And it's a great idea. I mean, some people think it's such a huge thing to have to prepare one specific thing for somebody's dietary requirements. So sometimes it's just better to bring your own.
I always did, and I always ask for the theme. So let's say it's a unicorn. That's the I have in mind. There was a unicorn theme, and I just matched the cake with the cake of the birthday girl, and it was, you know, nobody saw any difference. She just had a cake on the side, as if the girl had 2 cakes, and our kids ate the vegan one. And that always works. That works well, I would say. Of course, now they're older, so sometimes they just go with the flow. I don't bring the cake. Now, to be honest, since we have been in Lombok, we haven't been to any birthday parties that I can remember. And if we did attend any parties, we were super lucky to have a vegan cake served. So we never had any issue. And the food, if it's mainly vegetables and fruit, then we are super happy, because to be honest, that's the way we see our lifestyle. We just want to munch on veggies and fruit, rather than, I don't know, nuggets, like the traditional nuggets you see served at birthday parties, right? Here in Lombok, we have seen just veggie sticks, crudité, fruit slices, like a watermelon cut into cubes. So that's perfect for us. And of course, if you have a cake, it's even better for the kids, because, you know, at the end of the day, they are kids and they want to enjoy a piece of cake. And me too. And me too.
Yeah, it's nice to have that little sweet thing every now and then. You actually find very almost healthy sweet things for your kids to snack on. How do you work around that? Because I know when I was a child, I loved sweet things, and I was not a quiet child either. I was a very loud child. And when I didn't have my way, people would know. How do you
Well,
I mean, maybe it's just not exposing them to as much sugar or something, but how do you do it?
Well, we for sure limit the consumption of white sugar. So we have regular snacks in our house. So it's just a dates that you cut into half and you spread peanut butter and sometimes chocolate chip that we find here an hour away from Kuta. So amazing chocolate chip. It's a simple snack, but it tastes like a Snickers bar, a healthy Snickers bars version.
You'll have to tell
So
me where you get that, because I definitely want to try it.
can do it for you. So that's usually what we do. And even for myself, when I crave something very sweet and chocolatey, this is what I go for. But
Yeah.
what we have here in terms of snacks, it would be fruits, really. A juicy mango, that's what the kids love the most, or a slushy made out of watermelon and mint. So it's hydrating, it's full of nutrients, and that makes me feel good knowing that I give them something nutritious, and not loaded with sugar. And of course, they do have the occasional little candies that we find here and there. Like I usually keep those for plain rice, or when we have to go somewhere for like a picnic on the beach, and I want to make it special for them. So they know they will have a certain or specific treat that they enjoy, but they know that it's not going to be on a daily basis.
I think it definitely makes it even more special when you do that. So yeah. Have you had many like fussy moments with them? Do they generally eat your beautiful healthy meals that you cook at home?
Well, honestly, the fussiness have never been about, the meat or milk that they never had, but the shiny factor of foods, if that is even a word. I believe foods like burgers or chicken nuggets, fish fingers, they have been designed to groom us from a very young age to get attached to them. So we grew up watching kids having McDonald's with a clown, having sugar-coated cereal for breakfast with a smiley tiger, or athletes quenching their thirst at the finish line with Coca-Cola. So it's a true battle to fight all those fronts, but I try to make the meals colorful and pretty, and I always emphasize the importance of them being healthy. Plus now you find all those meat substitutes, so it's easier than when I turned vegan. Of course, it's occasional and they know that. So we don't abuse it, but sometimes I am brutally honest with them, and I tell them where the meat and cake they see their friends eat come from. But crucially, I do my best not to force them to eat and to give them the time to make that decision on their own.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like I want to raise my children with the same values, almost like being very conscious with what you eat and why you're eating it and what's it giving back to you as a person, because I think that we just consume without thinking twice about where it came from. My family, we always did like we're not religious, I would say. I would just say that we're more mindful, but we always did like a little quiet before we started eating to almost say a little prayer for the duck or the chicken or whatever it was, even the vegetables that we would eat. And growing up into adulthood, I always found that I was more conscious with what I was eating, and I wasn't just picking stuff off the shelf and being like, oh, that looks good. I was more thinking about where it came from and how it would have been treated. Even the broccoli, if you choose broccoli that's being imported from somewhere overseas versus a broccoli that was locally grown, and it was probably grown with much less pesticides. That's something that you're putting into your body. So I definitely feel healthier now. And
like when you're very conscious about what you eat, I think that makes a whole lot of difference, really. But it's like when I became a mother, I could not give my kids a choice about being vegan or not. Just like religion and life values that we would like to impart to them. Being vegan for us is no different. My kids will grow up to make their own minds, and that would be the choice. But of course, they can change their diet habits and even their religion, but they will do so once they are mature enough to make their own choices. So, but I want them to be mindful about what they put in their mouth. That's the number one.
Exactly. I think it's a very interesting topic to talk about being vegan and pregnant, because you're feeding two bodies and, growing a body inside you. And I think people don't think, or they think that vegans just don't get enough nutrients for themselves, let alone two people. I think there's a lot of stigma out there that being on certain diets is dangerous for you when you're pregnant, and you have to eat meat when you're pregnant, and you have to drink milk when you're pregnant, or you have to do this and X, Y, and Z. And society almost puts these norms on you. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this is because you've done it and you're still doing it. I think that also there's a side of plant-based that's very processed. And the way that you do it is very raw and real still, but still wholesome, and you're still getting all the nutrients that you need, which is the main thing. Like, where did you seek all your resources from? Did you just look them up on the internet, or was it a person that you talked to get your information?
In terms of recipes, or you mean nutrients?
In terms of nutrients, in terms of like what you should be eating during pregnancy, and also like what you should be feeding your kids when they're growing up.
It became a natural thing, I think, after each pregnancy. But for the first one, I prepared myself very, very well. My mind, my body was ready to give birth, but also nutrients wise, I did read a lot, like a lot. And of course, it's not much difference from a meat diet and the vegan diet. You just have to make sure that you are covered in terms of protein, because when you're vegan, you have to cover the protein intake. So I did read how much we need when we are pregnant, when you're not pregnant, when you're vegan and when you're not vegan. And it became natural to make my plates around it, make sure I was covered in calcium, protein, and B12, and vitamin C and D, and folic acid. That's when also I made sure I was taking my prenatals, because sometimes you don't feel like cooking anything, right? So you're just tired, or you're bored at the end of the day, especially when you're pregnant. So I was taking my prenatals very religiously, especially during the first trimester. But so I got all my information throughout books, and of course the internet has a lot to offer in terms of platform. So I found everything I needed. I didn't go and see any dietitian or a nutritionist, but I find the information that I needed, and I just didn't take one information. I got many resources and many sources from the same information that I wanted to get, if you know what I mean. I was making sure it makes sense to me at the time, and it became natural after each of my pregnancies.
Yeah, that's the essence of being successfully plant-based. I think a lot of people choose it because, they want to lose weight or something. But if you choose it for the right reasons and your body is enjoying eating that food, then it comes with ease, and something that I've really embraced. I was vegan for a short time, but I found that my body was craving certain things. And I was vegan because I'm already dairy free, and eggs kind of didn't make me feel good. But also I just thought, oh, great, I'll just become vegan. And then my body started craving certain things. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should try and eat this thing. And then I started eating a little bit of fish and a little bit of prawns and, seafood. And I found that my body really enjoyed that. And I think that that's something that's really important, to follow what your body is doing and not just like stick to one specific diet or anything. Like, I've heard a few different pregnancy diets that you should eat this and you shouldn't eat this during your pregnancy, but following your body is exactly what you should be doing, I feel.
That's exactly it. And when I supported mothers or couples, they were asking me, should I be vegan? Just because they knew I was vegan. At first, that's not something I tell people, by the way, when they're trying to know how I give birth myself, what I eat, because just when they found out about my background, they just think this is the right way. And I just tell them there's no right or wrong way. This is what works for us as a vegan family. But like you said, many people go on plant-based diet to lose weight, but for us, it's a lifestyle for good. Same during pregnancy, listen to your body cues and what your mind is telling you. If you feel like you crave this, just go ahead. Of course, when you're pregnant, you have to make sure that the raw food you eat is very clean, and avoid raw fish, for bacteria.
Yeah.
But so if you stick to a whole food diet, and you ensure to get all the essentials that you need. So there's no right or wrong. Like you said, you were craving this, and that's how you should be. That's what you should be following. Really follow your gut.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask if you had any tips for parents who were considering transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle with their kids, but I think you've answered everything. Do you have any tips? Would you give?
I would say go gradual and make it for the right reasons. There are plenty of recipes out there, and you will not miss out on anything. That's that you can veganize almost any dish or sweets, like I said earlier, from the Snickers bar. You can find marshmallows that are vegan, pancakes, lasagna, burgers, you name it. And your children, if they have children, they might not even know the difference. But stick to whole foods, as much as you can, like you would with any diet, to stay healthy, really. So that would be my tip. But of course, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but my best advice would be trying not to stress over it. I know it's easier said than done, and I'm talking about my own experience here. Mom guilt is real.
Yes, it is. It definitely is.
I always encourage mamas to listen to their body cues, listen to their intuition, what they got to tell them. When you're pregnant, when you are on this journey, your body and mind will travel through so many channels that it's impossible to know what you will like at that particular moment. So the main focus will be to stay hydrated, have plenty of fibers, and try to have rainbow colored plates and enjoy the moments, really, as well as staying active, like we talked earlier. It's essential to live a healthy pregnancy, and it helps during the birthing process. I can't stress this enough. I always say stay active, stay hydrated, and everything will go well.
Good advice. I'm going to follow that when I'm pregnant. I think you've said it all, and you've given some really great advice. And there is a disclaimer at the end in the outro, but I'll say it again. This is not advice that you should take verbatim. This is just a personal experience. And you've done it so successfully. And I mean, your kids are healthy, and you're healthy, and you're happy. And that's the main thing. As long as you aren't forcing yourself into something that you feel really constrained by, and you don't feel like you can keep up, I think you're doing the right thing. And ask the professionals to make sure that you're doing the right things. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. You've done really well.
But if you want to add something about raising children on a plant-based diet, I would say it's important to introduce them to a variety of food from their early age, like when they start eating solids. And let's not forget that it might take up to 10 times before a child likes a type of food. So
exactly.
I would say keep on introducing the same until the palate becomes accustomed, and let their taste bud develop. We personally offer them a bunch of veggies and fruit in smoothies every day. We cut the crudité and fruit with mini and cute cutters to make it more appealing and fun too. And another important thing is that we lead by example. Exactly. Children are like sponges, right? So yes, they will copy you. So have the loaded green juice and witness them having theirs too. That will be my advice to mamas who are trying to raise children on a plant-based diet.
Exactly. That's some great advice. Thank you, Delphine. It was so amazing learning about all this stuff, and you are a wealth of knowledge. There's so much gray area and stigma around what you should be eating during pregnancy. I think we've said that enough, but I hope that some vegan mamas, or even just non-vegan mamas, can learn something from this and from your experience, and feel confident in preparing for a healthy birth successfully. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks to you. It was my pleasure, really.
Everyone, you can find Delphine at Mandalik and Us on Instagram. Is that correct?
It's correct. Mandalik and Us, or at the Doula page, just Let's Birth Together.
Yes, you can find her at those two Instagram pages. They have some beautiful content on there, and you can follow her and follow her journey. And we'll see you next fortnight for another juicy episode. For more information on pregnancy, birth and parenthood, head over to my website or Instagram at blissfulbirth.co. And just a little reminder, the information contained in this podcast is here to educate and empower and does not replace the advice of your own healthcare provider.